Hey everyone, so Jim Carrey was on Bill Maher recently and beseeched all of us to stop fearing socialism, stop fearing the word, and stop fearing it in its entirety. Now, first of all, it should be obvious that Canada is not socialist. Now, they do have large government programs specifically within healthcare, but there is plenty of private property and private ownership of the means of production. This is important to remember because the only way a country like Canada can get away with engaging in the type of state-run healthcare that it has is if it has a more robust free market sector of the economy to leech off of to fund it. But that does not mean it is sustainable. It cannot last forever, especially considering that once governments obtain power and control, they seldom relinquish it and often scratch and claw for more. So now Jim Carrey goes on to say that while in Canada he never experienced long waiting periods for healthcare, and that sounds wonderful for him. Unfortunately, many Canadians cannot make the same statement, and certainly not in comparison to the US. In fact, the Supreme Court of Canada, in the case of Shawi versus Quebec, struck down Quebec's attempt to make private insurance illegal, citing the absurdly long waiting times that Canadians suffer from. And they rightly pointed out that private insurance would help Canadian citizens in shielding themselves from those long wait times. So Jim Carrey says he never had to wait. Well, good for him, but that is absolutely insulting to his Canadian comrades that do have to suffer abnormally long waiting periods today. The implied claim that Jim Carrey is making that government-run healthcare won't suffer from drastically increased waiting periods is factually incorrect. And yet I could not help but notice that Bill Maher's audience ate it up and couldn't applaud enough. So next up is Jim Carrey's assertion that his mother never paid for healthcare. Now this is just insulting to any thinking person. You actually did pay for healthcare every single time you spent a dime in taxes. Side note, I realize Canadians don't use dimes, but just go with it. The point is, it gets tiring to have to point this out to people who seem unable to engage in simple critical thinking skills. Canadian citizens must have their time, energy, money, capital, resources, and effort taken away from them by force and reallocated against their wishes into the Canadian healthcare system. So again, the implied idea here from Jim Carrey that Canadian healthcare is free is factually incorrect. And this is why when Jim Carrey tells us to stop being afraid of socialism and just accept it, I say hell no. He says these things with a smiling face and a charming tone, but he should understand that what he advocates is violence being done to innocent people. He wants government to point guns at Canadian citizens and force them to give money into a healthcare system with absurdly long waiting periods. Now, thankfully, there is never any violence that actually occurs from this because people are so used to it. They are numb. They are acclimated to this theft. But the moment the Canadians claim the right to keep what they've earned, that will be the moment that their government will show them just how willing they are to steal from them in order to provide that free healthcare that Jim Carrey was talking about. But that's all for now. Thanks.